Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Carl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast Radio.
Well, the buy now, pay later revolution is a global phenomenon which has arrived in Ireland with the launch of Klarna Bank's Pay in 3 product. Colin Creagh from Klarna joins me on the phone now to discuss the advent of buy now, pay later and Klarna's growth prospects for the Irish market. Colin, firstly, you might introduce us to Klarna Bank.
Thanks, Carl. Yeah, so Klarna is a global payments provider and shopping service. We were founded in 2005 in Stockholm, and since that time we've grown across 18 markets. We've got 250,000 retailers that we work with and over 90 million users. In fact, we're just very close to hitting our 100th millionth user very shortly. So yes, and we launched in Ireland on the 9th of November, and it was fantastic because it was a big push for me personally to be representing Klarna and bringing our proposition to the Irish merchants and users.
So what appealed to you about working for this Swedish organisation in this particular space?
Yeah, so I think it's the innovation. It's the fact that I've been in e-commerce since 2010, and what Klarna is about is changing the way that people are buying online and shopping in store. And it's all about disrupting that approach where traditional banks and finance houses have really lost touch with how consumers want to shop and where they shop. And for me, what Klarna represents is a trusted brand. It's a safe and secure way for people to make transactions. And as a fully regulated bank, we obviously make sure that from a consumer perspective, the consumer is looked after and is treated fairly and has a great experience when they use our services. But also from the point of view of the merchant base that we work with. When I say merchant, I talk about retailers and brands. And so we have a whole community and network of retailers and users that come together and provide that service across those 18 markets, as I mentioned.
And as you say, Klarna has just launched in the Irish market. Why was Ireland an attractive market for Klarna, and what are its growth expectations in this regard?
Yeah, so we've had Klarna in Ireland for the last couple of months as a way to try and test and make sure that we have everything ready to launch fully. And officially we launched on the 9th of November, as I said. But the journey to come to Ireland started about 4 years ago, where we were looking at the business opportunity and the fact that there's so many shoppers who are digitally savvy that are quite happy to engage with brands from many parts of the world, and also looking at the opportunities for growth. From a Klarna perspective, we see Ireland as that obvious choice. It's a Euro country, English speaking, and we've had a huge response from the launch already. We've got many thousands of users already using the service, and so we're very confident about the growth opportunities. And we're here to stay for the long term. I know there's been challenges in the past with banks leaving, etc., but we're here from the point of view of we've got a team now set up in Dublin, and we've made a long-term commitment, both investment terms and, as I said, staffing terms. So, yeah, growth opportunities we're expecting to be very positive.
And traditionally, Colin, of course, buy now, pay later initiatives were always synonymous with big ticket items. But in recent times, it's very much transitioned also now into the retail space. How has that actually happened?
Yeah, I think what's happened, Carl, is that the idea now of people looking for alternative ways to spend and moving from that traditional model of, as you say, big ticket items into a world where people are now moving away from using credit cards because of excessive fees and charges. There's many, many more people using debit card as a way to spend, but they need that flexibility and that control over how they're buying items. And so we've identified an opportunity where, with Buy Now, Pay Later, offering installments, whether it's for an item for €100 or whether it's an item for €500, that people are looking for that alternative way and an easy way to spread their payments. And effectively what happens is that with Klarna, we've launched what we call a pay in 3 product. And that pay in 3 effectively has 3 equal installment payments. So if you buy an item for 150 euros, you pay 50 euros on purchase, you pay 50 euros after 30 days, and then you pay the final payment of 50 euros on day 60. And the idea is that it's giving people that flexibility and the choice in terms of how they want to budget their finances. And the great news is for the consumers that there are no additional fees or charges associated with that. And so when we think about that traditional big ticket item, it would have been a very clunky experience, lots of form filling, etc. And what we've been able to do is to take all of that important information gathering, but put it into a digital environment, which gives people a faster response to whether or not they're eligible to use our services. And that change in consumer approach is what's driving the adoption of buy now, pay later, and in particular in markets such as Ireland.
And is one of the other reasons behind the drive behind this retail phenomenon in the buy now, pay later model the fact that so many of the millennials are now moving away from credit cards to using debit cards?
Yeah, and that is, we see that in Ireland, we see that in most of the other markets that we are operating in, and it's really interesting to see because that relationship that people would have had traditionally with their banks is no longer the case, because when you see the evolution of the likes of those neo-banks and other banking platforms that are coming in, to Ireland, it's just demonstrating how an Irish consumer is quite happy to engage with new technologies, and regardless of age, that the digital approach is the way that people want to engage with financial services companies and products. But I think as well when we look at the fact that a lot of the time when people are thinking about how they're going to pay, that there is in Ireland in particular an aversion to credit. And I think that the lessons that we've learned from the financial crisis, that a lot of people who have now come through that crisis, who are working for the last number of years, they're averse to credit. They don't want to take on additional debt. They're not taking out credit cards, but they do want to be able to manage their monthly spend in an easier way. And this is what Klarna helps them to do, is to effectively give them that flexibility with their debit cards, but without any of the associated fees and charges associated with a credit card.
That example that you provided us with earlier, the €150 purchase that's paid in 3 instalments, there was no interest being charged on that. So is that a fee that's been picked up by the retailer?
Yes, that's right. So the model is very much around whatever the consumer pays, that's what the consumer pays. There are no additional fees or charges or late fees or interest associated with that. And what we do is we charge a small transaction fee to the merchant in the same way that the merchant will be charged a transaction fee for any other payment type that they offer to their consumers. And that model is really transparent. There's for that, Klarna will take on both the fraud and the repayment risk. And what that means is for merchants and retailers, they're effectively mitigating the risk associated with offering installments, because they're obviously thinking, well, hang on a sec, if this customer doesn't pay back, am I out of pocket? And the answer to that is no, because what happens is Klarna will pay the merchant up front, less our transaction fee, and then the consumer pays Klarna back over the installment period.
And how significant are missed payments and those that just don't actually make the payments on the debt?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, because that's obviously a big part of the assessment that we do before we come to a market, to look at that level of indebtedness. We look at issues in terms of credit card and debit card usage in a market. And because of the technology that we use is providing real-time assessment of each person when they try to use Klarna, we're able to do an eligibility check. And what that means is that there's 2 key principles associated with how we operate. The first one is in relation to responsible lending, and the second is in relation to responsible spending. So if you think about a credit card, you're given a line of credit, let's say €1,000. You can spend as much as you like up to that limit, and then after that you have to repay it in full, or you can do it in small installments, but then obviously you're going to be paying fees and charges associated with that. With Klarna, we do an assessment every time you look to use the service. And that means that even if somebody has used Klarna before, there could be situations where we will deny them the use of the service if, let's say, they haven't paid us back, or if they have outstanding debt installments, if they have still outstanding installments. So that just means that we're protecting the consumer from overspending. We even have a feature that we have built in where effectively late night spending is controlled as well, so that when you're coming home late in the evening and you decide to see that new shiny product that's been appearing on your phone, that if you look to use Klarna, there's a good chance that we'll deny the use of that, because again, we look at behavior, we look at when spending happens, and then we use that model to ensure then that there is no overspending involved with the use of Klarna. And it also means as well, Carl, from a consumer perspective, that when they actually use Klarna, they're able to download the Klarna app. And this is a big part of how we are operating in Ireland and as in our other markets, because it gives you that visibility instantaneously of the items that you're purchasing, of the installments that you have agreed to, and then it helps you control the use of your budget. And within the Klarna app, there are lots and lots of different features. But within that app, you can pause repayments, you can pay off your payments instantaneously. And a lot of that consumer transparency and control is what is winning consumers to the Klarna way of shopping, because it's that insight that people want. They want to have control of their monthly spend. And I'm not sure if this applies to how many people listening in, but certainly when I look at it, we're a busy family, we have lots of outgoings, and to be able to have an instantaneous insight into where you are with your budget, knowing how you can spend, that helps you then to determine what is available for discretionary spend. And so with Klarna, it's not about giving access to a line of credit to people who can't afford it. It's actually giving people empowerment to be able to say, well, actually, I have money available now. I can buy it off in one go, or I can choose to spread it in installments.
And Colin, are buy now, pay later finance products regulated by the central bank here in Ireland?
Yeah, so we're a fully regulated bank, and we follow all of the regulations in relation to the Consumer Protection Code, etc. So all of the protections that are required for a consumer are there, and equally all of the protections are there for merchants who are offering Klarna to their end user. And in fact, we go above and beyond that because of the fact that we have more access to insights around individuals and their creditworthiness. We're able to do an immediate lookup in terms of the eligibility, and not everybody will get access to Klarna. As I mentioned before, it's really important to us that it's modelled around responsible lending and responsible spending. I'm spending time meeting with consumer groups, meeting with different local and state agencies to help educate people around the Klarna way of working, because to be honest with you, nothing like this has ever landed in Ireland, and it's important for us to bring to life what it is that we do and how we do it.
And Colin, provide us with an insight into your growth plans for the Irish market.
Yeah, so we started out with our Pay in 3 model, our Pay in 3 product, and also the Klarna app is available to download. We've also started a national media campaign, so we have Dublin Bus showcasing Klarna. We have TV ads starting this week across the various channels. We're also going to be launching various initiatives with small businesses, because an important part of what Klarna does is to help domestic businesses to grow across the country, but also then to expand into the other markets. So we see international growth opportunities as a big part of our discussions with Ireland-based merchants. So again, this would look at both building relationships with retailers and brands, educating and raising awareness of the Klarna brand with consumers, but then also being able to work with local businesses to be able to help grow, as I said, domestically or internationally.
And you mentioned, of course, the Pay in 3 product that you've already developed. Is there any other products in the pipeline for the Irish market?
Yes, I am delighted to say that we will have more products coming to market in early 2022. If you look at any of our other markets, UK, the Nordics, Germany, US, there's quite a number of other Klarna payment options available. Those other payment options can be a 30-day payment option, or even going up to as much as a 48-month option, where we can bring in flexible finance options for bigger ticket items.
And finally, Colin, on a broader note, what is the potential for buy now, pay later in the overall payments market?
It's quite significant, Carl, to be honest, because when we look at markets that are several years ahead of where Ireland is, if we look at the Nordics, for example, over 50% of e-commerce transactions are through buy now, pay later. If we look at Germany, for example, 40% of their transactions are through buy now, pay later. And so this, again, is part of an evolution of how people are changing their payment methods as people start to evolve in terms of how they want to take control of their budget, how they want to take control of how they're spending their money. So I would see buy now, pay later being a significant part of the Irish way of shopping in the very near future.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Colin Creagh from Klarna, and we will certainly watch with interest to see how buy now, pay later options develop within the Irish market.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Carl Fitzpatrick.
South